Welcome back. We're unpacking the Wuhan Institute of Virology and its link, perhaps, to these two Chinese nationals, sure they were naturalized Canadians, who are working at the Winnipeg Level 4 Virus Lab. And we're unpacking materials that were transferred, viruses, in fact. Peter, thanks again for coming on. Just
Your
before
pleasure.
commercial break, we were discussing the transfer of these samples. Is that, like, I don't work in a viral lab, but is that normal? I always think of these level 4 virus labs as so secure with so many layers. It's to prevent things from leaving. But here we have scientists transferring them, I assume, by an airplane all the way
Mhm.
over to another continent, in this case, to the country of China. Is this
Well,
normal?
it wasn't surreptitious. She didn't, hide it in her pocket. This was there were all sorts of forms were filled out and
Okay.
approvals and whatnot. And it is these level 4 labs. There's only so many in the world, and there is some back and forth around the world. It's notable that the U.S. had clamped down on virus transfers to China, and the reason that Canada was an attractive source for these viruses was the fact that the U.S. had declared that it wasn't going to be shipping anything to Wuhan. So it's not unusual that there'd be some kind of sharing. What is crucial here, I think, is that when the story broke in 2019, the federal Liberals were very clear because these two things broke around the same time. One, that the two scientists were escorted off by the RCMP off the premises, and then a month or two later, we learned that there'd been this, transfer of viruses to the Wuhan lab.
And then
At the time,
we're in a
all the federal messaging was that there was no connection between these two things. The scientists had violated some administrative protocols, and that was all, and that the virus shipment was merely a typical interagency cooperation. And then once we got the document dump that finally came out from the Liberals, we found out that they're actually crucially linked. This was one of Shu's main tasks given to her by the Wuhan lab, was to secure these viruses for projects that she was then going to be involved in at a Chinese institution while still working at the National Microbiology Lab. So there was a very clear connection between these two things, and the PR messaging from the Liberals that there was nothing connecting them has been proven false.
So talk to me about this document dump. How was it obtained? And from what I understand, it was initially very heavily redacted. So explain this to us.
Yes, well, after the media got very interested in the two scientists being escorted off the lab, and so did the opposition conservatives. So through the Canada-China Committee of the House of Commons, they asked for documents explaining why this was not a national security issue, which the Liberals always claimed it was. So there was a titanic battle, a conflict that I don't know that we've ever seen before in the House of Commons, with first the Committee on China and then the House of Commons at large demanding the release of these documents, the Liberals government saying they were not going to release them, the Speaker demanding it, the head of PHAC was called before the bar, something that hadn't happened in 100 years, to be admonished
Oh,
by the
wow.
Speaker. The Liberal government said they were going to sue the Speaker. The Speaker said that this was impossible because the House of Commons was its own entity. That whole battle that was going to be fascinating, would keep political scientists, professors, employed for decades. It never came to pass because the 2021 election intervened, and then the Liberals had a change of heart for whatever reason, and they said, okay, we'll come up with a way of showing you these documents. There was a committee of 4 MPs were struck, and they got some judges overseeing them. And in the end, the system actually provided quite impressive clarity for Canadians. It turned out to be a national security issue, and the documents with minor editing were released, and now I'm able to talk to you today about what was in there and what CSIS was discovering, and so it's turned out for the good in the end, but it's certainly a very long and unusual struggle as the Liberals tried to prevent all this information from coming out. And now we know why, because it makes them look incompetent.
Well, and that's something I want to get to after the break. So let's remind ourselves that the Speaker of the House is a Liberal MP himself.
Mhm.
So it
At the
was
time,
like, yeah, at the time. So them threatening to sue. I mean, this sounds like
the
political
mind
drama.
boggles. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. I want to know what this means for the Liberal government and the reputation, and we're going to pick up this discussion in just a moment.